Hey, how's it going? I am Greg, the creator of Superhero Coding, and we are going to continue working on our game today. This is session 3 for November 2023, which isn't as important as this is session 3 of our Space Invaders Galaga kind of a game. Basically, you've got a boss moving around, shooting at the player, shooting back. So today we're going to add some logic to the bullets and clean up the scene a little bit. I've got some fun ideas for the boss, but that's probably going to be next session. And did not get to the fancy VR graphics this time, but should have those in place for the next session too. So without any further delay, let's just jump right in. Switch over to Unity. Switch that over to there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's where we left off. So we've got a player moving around at the bottom. We've got a boss at the top that spawns enemies that shoot down. Well, one, I think all the bullets are moving a little fast, and they're a little small. I like the dynamic. I like the chaos here going on. It's a bit much. Especially with the tiny bullets and everything moving fast. I'd really like the boss, I think, to maybe have periods of invulnerability, and change color when he does that, and like have the enemies that are flying around here maybe like explode a little bit when they get blown up. First, we need to put in some stuff. Right now, we've got a bunch of debug log stuff. Got a bunch of crazy collisions happening. I'm not even sure if everything's on the same plane. Yeah, I guess it is. So we need to clean up the bullet, put a little logic in there, and we need to, if I get nothing else other than bullet logic cleaned up, because we're using the same bullet script. Player has player bullet, which has the bullet script. Boss, this boss bullet, that's not being used anymore. But we've got the enemy bullet, which is spawning itself, basically. So the boss script is spawning these enemies. That is what's listed as its enemy bullet, which should probably be called the thing that we spawn, but that's fine. And then the enemy is actually shooting bullets. So we're using one script, this bullet script, in a bunch of different places, which is not bad. But, you know, this script is tiny. This script is, you know, like 5 lines of actual code, and there's comments and other stuff. And that's okay too, but we need some logic in there if we're going to use it in all the same places. And it's good to use it in all the same places. You can get into classes, which is a little advanced for beginners. I'm really kind of aiming this at beginners. So we're not going to get into object inheritance and all that stuff. We're going to use some collision tags to check to see what we're doing and what we're hitting, and go from there. Let's go into Visual Studio. While I drink some coffee. So, all right. So yeah, this is the whole bullet script. There's nothing to it. I mean, it's literally like 3 lines of logic, which is, hey, you have a move speed, get the local position, transform it by the move speed in the Y, which is going to be up and down for what we're doing. And that's okay. We've got some stuff over here. We've got the boss firing a bullet. We don't need to know that every time. Show you a trick that I use a lot. So public bool debug on equals false. So again, by assigning a default value everywhere that this script is used, it's going to have that value. If I don't, and that's more important if this was going to be true rather than false, and it'd be more important if I was using a bullet rather than boss, but that's fine. Now I can come in front of all these debug log statements and say if debug on. I don't normally like one-line pieces of code, but I feel like adding the extra brackets on this would be wasteful. So I put this in there. So it's in those two places. Now, is that super useful? Yes and no. One, it's not going to clutter up my console anymore. But two, if I ever need all that again, rather than commenting everything out and commenting everything back in, all that, literally click a button. I can click the Boolean called debug on my boss, which I put on a lot of game objects, usually at the bottom. So I know if I need all that, while I'm playing, if something's not going right, I can click debug on, and then I'm getting all this debug information right there. And the next thing I'm going to do is put the same thing on death wall, because that is also giving us a ton of information, which is good, but we don't really need it. Public bool, debug on is false. And then again, the front of these. And, you can do other stuff if you're doing some crazy logic. Sometimes I'll have my basic debug on. Sometimes I'll put it at the top of the scripts. Doesn't matter, but consistency is good. And sometimes I'll do a deep debug if I'm just trying to work on one thing that's really kind of holding me up. So debug Boolean defaults to false, means these are all going to be false in every place. I'm just going to go ahead and do it over here as well. Public bool debug on is false, and bullet is where it's significant. So now all of these are going to be set to what I want it to be set to, because we know that bullet is being used in much places. And actually, I might have wanted to put that true. No, I don't. So, okay. So, right now, the only logic we've got really in the whole game where any collision happens is in death wall. We hit something, if it enters the trigger or stays on the trigger, that is our death wall. Then, they say they're both set to trigger, then it drops a message. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and use Control-Shift-S, and I'm going to save out a new scene. I'm going to call this Galaga 05, just to keep things clean. I like to keep it, I like to keep my scenes in incremental builds so I can kind of go back and see where we started. This is interesting if you're doing a devlog and stuff like that, but it can also be helpful if your scene gets corrupted or something like that. It's a really bad practice to just have one scene file for like your main scene and you do everything in there, because if power goes out while it's writing a disk, it's gone and you are hosed. If you're not using backups and version control, you should be doing all that. You should be zipping, you can zip the whole project directory. You can use version control. Git is really good with Bitbucket or GitHub, the private repo. A lot of good backup options. So, but even with all that, I do this too, because you can really never have too many backups. All right, so we got a new scene. I double clicked it and I look up here at the top of the screen just to make sure I'm there in the right scene I want to be. So what we need some logic in the bullet that says, hey, this is what I've hit. So we can take this out of Death on Touch. We can drop that in here. We probably don't need stay because nothing's big enough. Don't want to destroy anything right now. So here we're checking by the name. We'll want to be checking with the collider tag. But see, by pasting this code in from the other place, I'm already using the debug log that's already there. So that's handy. But now, either my bullets or the things. Okay, yeah, bullets are already set for his trigger, so that's good. Okay, so actually on the bullets, I want to set debug on to be true. It's really just those two. I click this, I control click that, I click debug on, now it's on for both. That's a pretty common Windows thing. You can shift and shift click, or click and then shift click, or you can control click individual items. Very, very common Windows things. So I can go over that again. All right, so now nothing is happening. All right, and that's fine. Ooh, let's see, what do we have? If debug on hit, so on trigger enter. Probably my player. That's all right. So we should enter on trigger stay. We should be, when the bullet hits something, says, hey, we just hit blah, blah, blah. I think that needs to be on to register collisions. And this is where I go and really check to make sure that we are absolutely in the same place on. Yep. Okay. So yeah, bullets are hitting. All right, yeah, does not need to be a trigger. Bullet. That's a trigger. Which we want. I always forget the rules. Gotta have a trigger on one thing, but not the other. It's gonna, so we know this was working when we had the trigger on the death ball receiver. So what we can do, so if we change the boss move speed, I'm gonna hit pause and then I'm gonna hit play. I'm gonna set that move speed to 0. And I'm gonna unpause. And so that should those things should be hitting that. It might be moving too fast. So if we come in here and just delete a bunch of those, I guess that's futile. What if we set the move speed to something more like -3? Now the bullets are moving much slower. Ooh, not getting a trigger. Should be able to. There's something really obvious I'm missing. Hey, welcome to game development, where you can do this a long time. And if I was doing Unity all day, every day, and I do a lot of Unity every day, but I'm not necessarily doing triggers. It's one of those things. I do other programming too, and sometimes you just don't do enough to really remember exactly. All right, so I'm gonna make the bullets a little bigger. So I'm just trying to test some things out. Is it the size? Is it the speed? You know, we wanna figure out what the problem is. So okay, so if I'm there, things are hitting. I can physically see that they're hitting. I can layer bigger if I want. That's good. Layer's a trigger. There's not a trigger. Does not seem to matter. So I've got a rigid body here. Don't think I need a rigid body. Maybe that's the problem. Layer trigger here. A rigid body. Except it's going to be, now everything's colliding. That should be a trigger. And the rigid body on there. Don't use gravity. Yeah. Like there's something really obvious I'm missing. Bullet scripts there. You're on the player. You're on the player. So. Okay. So sometimes you want to isolate. There's too much stuff going on here. My brain, I haven't had enough coffee yet. So it's good to isolate. So I'm going to go duplicate that and call that 5B. Go into that. All right. So I want my boss to just shoot the boss bullets again. That up, close that up. Boss shoots boss bullet. Boss shoots speed of 1. Here's the movement. There's that. That. This is the other nice about, you know, having all the defaults and stuff on here. That. Contacts. That's new. It's contacts without any monobehavior listeners. That should always be the case. Don't want a listener. And I should have set my boss speed to 0. So yeah, this provide context thing, this is new. All right, so we got contacts, we got the boss shooting often. Okay, we know that. Oh, that probably just starts at the beginning. Player bullet. Don't need it telling me that it's firing a bullet. Is trigger. Like something has changed. Really not sure about this provides contacts thing. I know that. Let's just look it up. I've done this many, many times, but you know, hey, sometimes you still have to. Sometimes you still have to go look stuff up. Just don't remember. Because I'm doing all kinds of programming all the time. And this is, you know, the part where people don't want to live stream. You're like, I don't want to look like an idiot. I've been doing Unity for almost 15 years. But I don't do this all the time. I do all kinds of stuff. So, you know, not going to justify them. I need to look things up because sometimes you need to look things up. All right. Need my laser to interact with the enemy. Interact with that. Blah, 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 blah. Sliders and components. We need this. Rigid body attached to one of the objects. We knew that. Multiple colliders can be added. We knew that. Turn off gravity. We've already done that. Objects are going to destroy once they collide. On collision, enter. Collision game object tag. He's checking that. But we don't even have. You know what? That's probably what I should have done. On collision, enter. Yeah. And so if you have both of them, then you will know if something is happening or not. Right. Collide, but that's not quite what we want, because colliding, again, when things collide, they interact with each other, and that's not what we want. Triggers. One of the colliders is set up as a trigger. It will use the event system. Really? Feel like. Yeah, they're no longer colliding. On trigger, enter. Okay. Man, feel like I'm missing something here. A game object. To collider and rigid body. Enable is trigger. It's kinematic. All right. So, collider. That is a trigger. And the bullets were colliding with that. So I'm going to turn debug on and see if that is still the case. Yes. All right. So, boss bullet that has a collider, that is a trigger, is colliding with death wall bottom. It's a collider which has a trigger. I think that rigid body is the key. All right, now it's working. Because that code we put in here, you just collided with, just hit a trigger. So anytime in game development, you don't want to assume you know what the code's doing. It's going to do exactly what you tell it to do, for better or worse. But yeah, we're hitting triggers. We're hitting triggers. We hit a trigger called player. We hit a trigger called boss. I just did all that and it wasn't working. Yay, game development. All right. That's a trigger. That is a collider with a rigid body. That is not a trigger. That is a collider with a rigid body. All right, so let's try this. Trigger. All right, we hit the player, the boss. All right, so let's turn that off. Did we not, did. Commit debugs. Oh, this is boss bullet. And so you can, oh, that's what it's doing. Boss bullet collided with death wall. Let's see if boss bullet will hit player. Boss bullet hit player. All right. Now let's see if player bullet, so I can type over here. Player bullet, do a trigger called boss. All right. I don't know what I just did differently other than, go look it up in the docs, make myself look like an idiot. All right, go back to our scene. So player, not trigger with rigid body, bullet, trigger. Let's try that. All right, So I'm going to go back to 5. I'm going to duplicate it and go to 6. But the debugging process here, note what I did. Took out all the variables. It's not moving. It's not shooting the enemies. It's not shooting the other things. You want to simplify. If I was still having issues, you know, I would start taking out the death walls and the backgrounds and all that stuff. It's always, when there's a bug, sometimes you just have to simplify things down a bunch until you get to the point where it is, my timer stopped. You have to break things down until you kind of clear out some of the clutter. So, all right, this is exciting. I am not done. So we are, let's see, just give me an error on the streaming. Hey, welcome to game development. You know, I said from the beginning, I'm going to live stream these so you see the process. This is the process. Sometimes you go, I don't know why that's not working. Let me go look it up. And I changed nothing. And okay, well, now it works. Welcome to game development. It's just part of it. You know, you figure out pretty quick if you really like programming or you don't. And it's important for you, the rookie, to see that the pros still go look stuff up, because we do. You know, people that are really good in IT and programming and stuff like that are really good at finding answers online. We don't know all the answers, but we're really good at finding them. Most of the time, that's enough. So before we get back into the code, tell you how superherocoding.com works. So you sign up there on the email list, get some cool stuff there. The first week's lesson, code and everything is always free for a month. Building one game a month. First week's lesson and code, I mean, all the lessons are free on YouTube. First week's code and art and everything is free for everybody. If you want the other stuff, it's $30 during the course of the month. At the time of this recording, price goes up 250% after that. So if you're interested in the code, the art assets, and once we get the VR art in here, you will be interested in the art assets. You will want to do that during the current month. All right. Back to the code. Oh, yeah, that's what we're on. All right. So we're going to take what we learned and move it back over here. Back here. Everything's working now. It's maddening. Whatever. It's crazy. I mean, I added this in. But everything is showing up inside a trigger. Anyway, okay. So we need, I hope that was helpful for somebody. It's not really helpful for me and what I wanted to get done today. It's okay. All right. So are these hitting the player? Yes, they are. Okay. So we don't need all that debug stuff. I have no idea. Putting that in, whatever. Okay. Deleting that. Tags, player tags. So really, I just want to check. We need two things here. We need to see if we've got a player. We need to see if we hit the player, but we also need to see if we are a player bullet or an enemy bullet. So the easy way to do that, I'm going to do public bool is enemy projectile. Again, I'm going to get default to false. Really, that's enough for now. We know it's a player. Let's do that. Is player bullet. If it's not a player bullet, it's coming from the enemy, and then we want to check things to see where they're going. So we want to go to, let's add our tags, then we're going to check for the tags. Tags. All right, so tags you can check for a variety of things. I did not know this existed for a long time using Unity, several years. So layers are good for other stuff. I mean, they're both useful in different situations. Tags are really useful for collision things. So let's do a tag called player. Let's do a tag called player. What the what, man? Is player, is players reserved, and is enemy. And really, I mean, I could put like is enemy boss, but I'm just gonna use, yeah, player is a default defined one. That's is player is enemy. This also gets tagged is enemy. Do I want to tag the bullets? I don't think so. I guess bullets will pass through each other. That's probably okay. That's probably a bad idea. Okay. Is enemy. Okay, I don't want to tag the player bullets is player because we're checking for is player. And if we hit is player, game's over. Or you lose a life or whatever. In the 80s, you got hit, game over. Insert another quarter, please. We'll figure that out later. So player definitely needs is player tag. Player bullet does not. And really what we're doing, so if you hit the player, the game is over. If you hit an enemy thing, you destroy it. That's a super simplification, but that works enough for now. All right. So we don't need that. What we want to do now, I want to say if, same way that up here we used other game object name, if other game object tag equals is player. If it's is player, we want to do one set of things. If other game object tag equals, because you always use two equals when you're checking a value. One equal sign to assign it, two equal signs to check is enemy. I almost said this town needs an enemy, but I used that joke last time. So, enemy is enemy, enemy is enemy, player is player. Okay. And just to make it simple, guess we will actually will destroy other game object and say debug log. You lose. Not you're a loser, but you lose. That's different. Over here, other game object. Destroy other object, and we could do like a score. I'm not going to get to that this week. And then really we're going to want to check and say, is this a bullet or is this like a sub boss or, you know, like a bullet, a minion, or a boss? The other thing we need to do is we don't want the player bullet to destroy the player. That's why we have this. So we're going to check two things. If, put parentheses around the whole thing, two ampersands, Shift 7 means and, if other game object tag is equals is player and not equals false, no, not equals true. Is player bullet equals false, whatever. So if other tag is player and this is not the player bullet, then game over. Otherwise, if it's an enemy, I guess in the same way, we want to check because we're spawning these things inside the other things. So we want to check here too. Why put the Boolean in there? It's like I know what I'm doing sometimes. And is player bullet equals true? Then we want to destroy. That's important because without this Boolean and these two statements, then our bullets, as soon as we spawn them inside our thing, would destroy us. So we don't want that. See how it works. All right. If it works right, anything the player shoots should be destroyed, and anything that the boss or enemy bullets, if they hit the player, tells us we lose. So I'm going to slow things down a little bit. That down. So first, yeah, is player bullet? Yes. Debug on? No. Don't need that one either. It's not a player bullet. So let's make this like -5 and this more like 12, just to slow things down a little bit. All right, that's a more reasonable speed. All right. Okay. Do I destroy? Yes. When I get hit, I destroy. Looked like something else went wrong. I wasn't paying enough attention. Nope, that was me. Okay, and it looks like I'm still colliding and knocking the thing. Yeah, okay. So my bullets are hitting the boss. If you notice, the boss is going askew. It's because I've got two colliders hitting each other here. Watch when I hit that perfect square. Good. Still a little aggressive with all of those mini bots. Yeah. So the way that this looks right here, it's because there's a collider on the player that is that needs to be a trigger. Because again, colliders collide and physics interacts. Players not so much. So now if that was fine. Home again. Now I should be able to shoot the boss and destroy it. I can definitely shoot these guys. I was too focused on my guys to see if I actually killed those. And there we go. And should be like, hey, all right, you won. You cleared the screen. That's actually not a bad mechanic. Okay, here I'm shooting things. If I kill the boss and I avoid all the other things, so they're all gone, then I win. I like that. I like that. And this is, you know, this is just kind of part of game development. It's the best part of game development to me. You figure out as you go what works and what doesn't. I like the big boss spawning enemies. You know, you've got a lot to look at here. I'm watching me, and I'm just kind of like randomly shooting. I might want to put something in where I can't just keep spamming fire. Or, I mean, that's not bad. Sometimes, you know, it's like, okay, you can't shoot again until your bullet is gone. That would be bad in this scenario because there's way too many things happening on the screen. There's just me and one boss. That might be okay, and maybe it starts out that way. It's me and the boss. The fact that I'm not winning every time or losing every time is a really good sign. So there I collided with them. It's a really good sign because you don't want your game to be too easy or too hard. Now I just gotta avoid the last couple of them and we're good. All right, Cool. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save this out. I'm just going to duplicate that, actually. Control D, Command D on the Mac. Take another drink of coffee. We're going to do one more thing. All right. Still doing good. We're still doing good. Pop it back over here. Checking my stuff. Everything looks good. No questions. All right. And to here. Okay. What I want to do with the player, with the enemy, instead of just destroying it, I think it'd be kind of fun before we destroy it. I'm probably gonna get myself in trouble here. Can I do this in 5 minutes? Probably, maybe. Let's find out. All right. I think it'd be kind of fun. So there's our enemy, right? I'm gonna F to focus. I think it'd be kind of cool to do like some space junk that blows up. Enemy junk. Space junk that blows up when you hit the enemy. So I'm just gonna make a couple of different cubes, and I'm gonna just kind of put them in some random places here. But what I want, one of the things I want is some overlap, and I'm going to give these a different color because I don't want these to destroy the player when it hits. I want like stuff to like shower down, but I don't want it to kill the player. So let's give it like a I was gonna say like a gray, but we could do like a super dull yellow. Hey, you blew it up. Pieces, or we could do like, hey, here's like an orange. There's an orange thing. Boss is orange. Okay, we'll do like a grayish, like a yellowish, dull yellow. Sure. Call it dull, full, dull yellow. Enemy junk. Do want the collider there. I do not want any tags. And I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to rotate it. But this is really important. I want to leave it overlapping the first one. I'm going to do one more. That is a little smaller. And really, I should probably change the size of this too. All right, so I got 3 things. And 3 things. Yeah, they're all overlapping. Cool. Do not want to tag on them. Mesh renderer, yes. Box collider, yes. Trigger, no. And then I'm going to move them all to be create an empty, which is a good way to organize things, and call it space junk. And then I'm going to move all of the enemy's junk under there. And then turn that off by default. Okay. Now, space boss. All right, we're going to go fast. Got something else I got to do after this. We're going to do a public game object called destruction stuff. There's a debug log is at the bottom, like I said. And just do void do destruction. Nope, public void do destruction. And destruction stuff set active true. And I'm also going to private void on awake, just awake. Set that to false. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can have that visible in the editor. Awake happens before your scene, after you hit play and before start. So even if I leave it on, this will turn it off. come here. I'm going to make sure that this has something set. And I'll just, I guess I'll duplicate this and make it a little bit bigger. And that's going to be boss chunk. I'm not even using right now, but enemy space junk. And I guess I can take all three of these and make these orange. All right. Okay, now what we've got to do is when we collide, so we want to get access to this space boss script if we're hitting the right thing. All right. So we need to say space boss SB. Space boss is the variable type. SB is the variable name. Equals other game object. Get component. Space boss. And then what we want to do is we want to do let's do this. Let's turn that off. We're going to do SB dot do destruction. There we go. And inside of do destruction, I think what we're going to, so we want the destruction stuff to be active, and then I don't want to turn it off, but I don't want to turn it off after a moment. That would work, but if I deactivate the boss, then everything else deactivates too. I'll just do this for now. Void destroy me. Maybe public, whatever. Destroy me with a delay of like half a second. That'll work. Destroy. So what it should do, I need to turn the enemy back off. What it should do is when I shoot an enemy or boss, it throws up some stuff. All right. Oops. I want rigid body on all these actually. I do want gravity. I don't want kinematic. Rigid body. Try that because it actually worked. It just didn't do quite what I wanted it to. Okay. It worked. All right. Let's see. Shoot it. It kind of throws out some pieces. Not perfect, but not terrible. Yeah, okay. There, the boss blew up. I don't hate it. Yeah. It's not fantastic. Yeah, it's good enough for now. And sometimes good enough for now is good enough. You don't have to make your perfect game. I mean, the whole point of me doing this is to say you can make something simple. And for the amount of code we've got and the less than 3 hours we've got in this so far, I think it's coming along pretty good. It's fun to play. It's interesting. Is it gonna win any awards? No. But it's fun to play and it's interesting. And that's where you start. That's where you start. That's good enough to start. All right. Thanks for watching. And get the code at superherocoding.com. We'll catch you next time.